Hi everyone, welcome back to Off the Hook Crochet. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 different ways you can crochet into chains. The front loop only, the back loop only, both loops together, and the back bump. Each method creates a slightly different foundation and look for your project, so I'll go through each one step by step while explaining a little bit about chains. A common way to start your crochet project is by making chains. These chains have loops on the top and a ridge of bumps running along the back. Where you insert your hook when making stitches determines the look and flexibility of the following rows. So let's start with a common method, working into the back loops of the chain. As you're making chains, you're looking at the front of your work, and the back loops are the ones pointing away from you. This is where you will insert your hook, and it leaves the front loops exposed. So I'll go ahead and make some single crochet stitches here in the back loops of my chain. I'm inserting right under the back loop from the front, and I'm just making some basic single crochet stitches just to show you the look of the stitches. So as you can see, it leaves my front loops exposed, and this creates a thin ridge of material that will be visible after you complete your first row of stitches. So when is this useful? This method is sometimes used if you want to create a neat little border edge at the bottom of your project, and it can also make it easier to attach some edging or stitches later on. One thing I want to note is that crocheting into the opposite loops of the chain later on can leave a slight gap between your stitches, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this video after I've compared a few methods here. So I've gone ahead and crocheted right down into the back loop only of my stitches, and this is what that looks like. I have a neat little edge of front loops that are visible on the bottom of my row. And now I'll show you the next method. Crocheting into the front loops only produces a similar outcome as crocheting into the back loops only. What you're left with visible at the bottom of your work is the back loop and the back bump of your chain, as you can see here. So what we do, I'll start this again for you so you can see. Crocheting into the front loops, you identify those loops that are facing you. These are the front loops of your chain. And to begin, you insert your hook right underneath from the bottom, right underneath the front loop of the chain, and you go down your row in a similar way, crocheting into the front. So the front loops are the ones closest to you, back loops are the ones facing away from you. And now you'll notice that I'm leaving the back loops exposed. So you can use this method if you want to create a ridge at the bottom of your work, maybe attach some stitches to it later, like a border. And crocheting into the back or the front loops only allows you a little bit more stretch to your work. So if you want to make a hem or a cuff or something like that where stretching is key, then crochet into the front or the back loop only. And this is crocheting into the front loops. So all that's left here is my back bump of my chain, and the back loop is visible from the back of my stitches. This is what it looks like from the front of my stitches. This is the back of my stitches. So you can see the difference in the rows and how they look. So now I'll show you my personal favorite and my most used method crocheting into the chain is crocheting into both loops. You insert your hook under each loop of the chain when you're making your stitch, and it results in this clean, dense look with a sturdy edge that has less stretch than working into simply the back or the front loops. So you'll notice that it leaves only the back bumps of the chain exposed. So it's an option that fits most standard projects, especially ones where fabric density is important, meaning you don't want to see any gaps between your stitches, like amigurumi. You don't lose any versatility with this method either. You still can work into the back bumps of your chain if you want to later on. You can still insert your hook and add another side to this later on. So I'll show you what that looks like as I go down my chain. It takes a little bit longer to do because there's less to grab onto here, but you're inserting your hook under the front loop and then the back loop, and then you make your stitch like normal. So I insert under the front and then I grab the back and make my stitch. Front first, and then the back stitch. And careful not to twist as you work. You don't want to accidentally grab the back bump in the front loop or something like that. Just make sure you're grabbing the front and then the back loop as you're looking down on your chain. And as you'll notice, as I go along, only the back bump is exposed now. So it produces this nice clean look, and it's still very versatile. So the last method I want to show you is another one that I love to do, and it has its time. This method is working into the back bump of the chain. So as you're working, you'll turn your chain over and you'll look at the back and you'll see those back bumps like a spine. You insert your hook underneath that back bump. So you'll turn your chain over looking at that spine or the ridge, and you'll insert your hook only under the back bump. And if you're unsure which bump to start in, do a quick count. So I've chained 11 so I can get 10 single crochets here. Do a quick count of the bumps on the back and make sure you're inserting into the stitch that you intend to start in. In my case, it would be the 10th. So this would be number 9. So as you go down, make sure you're just grabbing that back bump. And as you can see, the top of the chain is visible on the bottom of my stitches here. And it leaves this nice like braided edge. So you'll notice working into the back bumps, it leaves the front exposed. It's almost like a symmetrical edge. This is very even feeling, same height at the end. So it's a great option for you if you want to make a foundation edge that matches the top of your finished work. An example of this could be if you're making a headband or a bracelet where both edges of your fabric will be visible. It looks almost the same as the top of your stitches. So I mentioned previously that crocheting into the opposite side of the chain looks slightly different depending on how you begin. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So if I want to crochet into the opposite side of my chain, and I have crocheted into both loops of my chain, I still can do that. Say I was going to crochet now in the round and make an oval or make a long piece of work here. I can still crochet into the other side of my chain. I'll make a couple stitches here so I can go down and show you the end. So now I have the back bumps exposed here. I'm looking at my stitches upside down, and I can continue crocheting along the back bumps. So whether you're doing something with amigurumi, maybe working in the round, or you're adding an edge later on to the bottom of your work, you can still use these back bumps to crochet into and finish your edge. So this is another option for you. This doesn't mean when you crochet into the back bumps, both loops rather, crocheting into both loops of the chain does not mean that you can't work into these stitches later on. As you can see, it's fairly easy to go down and add another edge here. So that's what it looks like when you crochet both loops of your chain and then continue on in the back bumps. If I were to do that with, here's my example for crocheting into the back loop only, You can see an immediate difference here. I'll go and do the same thing, continue and work into the front loops that are exposed of my chain. So doing that, I'm going to just grab one at a time of the front loops as I go. So you essentially get the same work. You have the same number of stitches, the same shape, but what you'll start to notice is that I have some gaps here in between my first row and then my row on the opposite side. And if this is not the look you're going for, then I would suggest trying by starting your row in the chain, working into both loops of the chain. So you can see the difference here, side by side comparison. Crocheting into both loops of the chain produces a more dense look without gaps, and crocheting into back or even the front loops only leaves that space in between because it's a looser connection there. So this is just grabbing a little bit more material as you go. So to sum it up, work into both loops of your chain for a strong, clean, dense looking edge. Work into the front or the back loops for a decorative ridge, and if you want a little bit of stretch in your work. And then work into the back bumps for an even decorative edge on the other side of your work. Each technique has its own purpose, and knowing all four gives you some flexibility as you choose which one's right for your project. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. And good luck. Keep practicing.